So, there was a bit of interest in PyPer that I posted on LinkedIn the other day. So PyPer is a little AI Raspberry Pi in a box. So I thought I'd do a little teardown for you so you can see all the hardware and stuff that's used inside. So essentially she allows you to press this little button on the top and say, "Hey PyPer, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow?"
I'll look at the forecast. Just a sec.
So she'll go away and check a weather API in the background.
Tomorrow's weather looks a bit mixed. We'll see a high of 18.5 degrees Celsius and a low of 14.8 degrees Celsius. Expect some rain with 21.8 millimeters falling over about 10 hours. So keep that umbrella handy if you're heading out.
And she also has a camera on the front here, so we can ask her to take a picture and tell me what you can see.
I'll get the camera running.
So we'll see what she makes of that.
I can see a workspace with two screens. One screen shows a web page with a listing for a 1.9-inch LCD display module. The other screen, which appears to be a laptop, shows a video call with a person holding what looks like a book. There are various other items on the desk, including a cup, plant, and some notes.
And play some funky music. So it's also hooked up to my Spotify account, and when I'm at home, about 50% of the time she'll take that command. That's her make a little noise saying she's going to look up something on Spotify and try and connect. Doesn't always work. There we go. Stop PyPer. Okay. So on the outside we've got a Raspberry Pi camera. It's a widescreen one because I just thought it would be better for an application like this. We've got a little button. There's this wave share screen that's on here, which is an IPS LCD display module. There's a little potentiometer on the side here, which I've hooked up to control the volume, because to be honest, I did have it so you'd ask PyPer to raise or lower her volume, and that was so inconvenient. I was trying to get away with the least controls as possible, and it turns out to be convenient. You've got to have a volume control, really. A few air holes, and one of these lovely buttons. So let's have a little look inside, shall we, and see what is happening. So she's powered by a USB-C connector here, and you can see you pop it in and she knows when she's on charge and off charge. Obviously the Raspberry Pi doesn't have USB-C, but let's just open this up in here. So this is what's going on inside, and you can see here there's that there's the other side of the USB-C connector, and that's just, I've just chopped off a wire there, a USB wire, and soldered one of these USB-C connectors. On the other side, I've got a whole bag of them somewhere down here, which they came in a little bag like this, and you just snap them off and wire them into another USB plug with a soldering iron. So in the box, I've just unplugged her power for now, but she's got this battery pack on. There's the back of the camera, and that's a ribbon cable which you have to buy separately because the port on the Raspberry Pi 0W, the small Raspberry Pi, the display port's quite small, so you've got to buy like a special ribbon cable so that it will hook from there to there. There's this battery UPS, uninterruptible power supply, which hooks her in. She'll last about about 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours unplugged at the moment. I've been quite careful with some of the power management, so her screen always switches off if she's not in use. The middle board is the Raspberry Pi Zero W. That's the main brain of it. And then there's this audio hat on the top, which has these wires coming out. A couple of speakers, the audio board and the speakers all came together. They're little 1 watt speakers, and they're plenty for a little voice application. I'm just going to look up. What board that was. So there's the Raspberry Pi Zero. That's the camera module that we've just been looking at. So it's the wide angle one. That's £33. And then this was the extra camera adapter cable that you got to buy to hook this camera up with this Raspberry Pi. This is the sound card hat. So this again is like a wave share device, and you can see on here there's a little microphone on there and a little microphone on there, and then all these speaker connectors, and it comes with these little speakers as well. So as far as audio goes, you've got everything you need. You've got 2 microphones and speakers out, all kind of stuff which doesn't come easily packaged, let's say, on the Raspberry Pi Zero. And then once you've added this board to the top of the Raspberry Pi, all of the pins are still exposed, and then the rest of this is, let's start with the button, I suppose, first. There's the green button that makes her listen. That's hooked up. These brown and white wires down here. I can't tell you exactly what the pins are, but I detect those and see when it's appropriate to start her listening. Then we've got the other one, which hasn't got too many wires on it, I suppose, is the potentiometer. So we've got this knob on the outside. That's on top of a potentiometer, and then I've kind of bent these pins round on this pot, and that goes into a analog to digital converter module, because the Raspberry Pi Zero W doesn't have one of those. So that basically is converting this analog signal from the pot into something digital, and that is going through these wires. There's one on power, and there's a couple on some GPIO pins there, and then that gives you a little signal that you can read off of there and start using in your programming. What else is there? Oh yeah, and then obviously there's the screen on top, which will pop on if I turn the volume up and down. There's a screen here that is, so there's the uninterruptible power supply UPS hat for Raspberry Pi Zero. That's the silver control knob. That is the 10K potentiometer that I use, that the knob sits on top of that. I bent these pins round just to give me a bit more space in there. That's the digital to analog converter, which hooks up between the knob and the board. Oh, and there we go, and the board. There's a load of different buttons. I've got a whole pack of those, because you can't, there's a 15 pack of those for the button on the top. And then the LCD display module was £11. You can see it's compatible with the Raspberry Pi Zero 2 here. And that is all of these wires coming out of here, basically. So underneath there, I've kind of wedged it in down there. I don't know if you can see in there. So there's the screen. It's basically has all of these wires coming out of it, which you diligently look at the manual and see where they plug into here. And I had a conflict actually between a GPIO conflict, which I've never heard of before, but obviously this wants to use some of the same pins and some of the same connections as the audio board does. So I found the easiest thing was just to reassign one of the pins in the code to use a different pin, and then I plugged that into a slightly different pin on the board, so the two things weren't conflicting quite so much, well, at all. And that's it really. So the case is made from the box that this board came in, just because it seemed about the right size, and it turned out to be exactly right, which was fortuitous. Now when I close this up, there's a few problems that I'm going to try and resolve on here. So let's just bring you up here a second. So at the moment, if I try and use the button, it's natural for my finger to be about here in the way of the camera, which isn't great. So I kind of built this piecemeal. So I think really this camera should be over this side, and I'm probably going to move this screen to here so that I'm looking at it rather than looking at the top of it all the time. Then I'll be able to also sit PyPer on a table like this and read the display. So I'll be able to put a clock on there or something like that. And this knob can then go on the top. So what we'll have is probably a button, the button and the knob up here, and then the screen here. And this is probably just for convenience, is probably going to get moved into the middle, something like that. But yeah, so I'm going to reconfigure quite a lot of these bits and pieces, because it wasn't really planned. It was built very piecemeal, bit by bit. But that's all the stuff that's inside PyPer. So PyPer, we've just shown everybody what you're made from on a video that I'm going to post online. Is there anything you want to say to everybody before I sign off?
Hello everyone. I'm PyPer, your friendly AI assistant. I'm made from a Raspberry Pi Zero 2W, a Waveshare audio hat, a UPS hat, and some nifty programming by Steve. Thanks for checking me out. Feel free to ask me questions anytime. Cheers.
There you go, a little teardown. Cheers everyone.